Going to talk, to kind of keep my theme going from the first lightning talk. This is going to be on music. And it's the difference between vinyl records and compact discs. But before I go any further, I wonder if we could just have kind of a thumb vote. Who has ever listened to a vinyl record? Thumb vote. Thumb vote. Who's ever listened to vinyl? All right, more than I would have thought. I'm surprised.
I own vinyls.
So first we need to understand the difference between, the definition between the two. So analog sound is what we hear naturally. It's a continuous sound. So if I were to hum, you'd be able to hear the highs and the lows of my hum. You might not be able to pick them out exactly when it happened, but you'd be able to hear it nonetheless. Digital, on the other hand, is just bits of sound. So you can look at this picture up here and think of digital as a staircase, where each step just represents a piece of sound at that moment in time. And going back to my humming example, if I were to hum, it wouldn't be continuous. You'd just hear bits and pieces. So when we think of technology, we tend to think that newer is better. You know, newer cars, newer TVs, newer computers. So it might seem counterintuitive then that some people think that analog is better, but they think that because analog is, it represents what the recording artist really wanted you to hear, whereas digital only captures certain pieces of that sound. But there's a problem with analog. Analog is recorded on tapes, and magnetic tapes will deteriorate over time. So they will literally crumble in your hand if they're not stored properly. And records, they can warp. Vinyl, it can warp, it can scratch, it can collect dust and hiss and pop. So there's a problem with analog. Digital, on the other hand, lasts forever, or virtually forever. There's some discussion as to whether or not digital really does last forever. But in this in this case, we're going to say that it does. So that CD that you bought 10 years ago and you got your favorite song on it, that song sounds the same today as it did 10 years ago, and it will sound the same in 10 more years from now. But there's a convenience cost when you talk about digital. Digital files, digital audio files are huge. And so they've got to compress those down in order to sit on the CD. And when they do that, here again, you're only getting bits and pieces of that sound that the artist recorded. So here are just some pros and cons. Analog, it's continuous, it's what we normally hear. Digital, it's easy to use, but it's compressed sound, so it's not natural, but analog scratches and hisses. So that brings us to the question, which is better? Well, I think it really depends. It depends on what it is that you want. You know, when you're walking here and you're going home tonight, obviously you can't play a record. You're going to put in your earbuds and listen to music that way. Sometimes when you're at home, you might want to put on a record if you think that's better. I own all the latest and greatest Beatle records, and they recently released CDs that were remastered, and those CDs are fantastic. You hear things that you've never heard before on the original stuff. I've also got the albums that they re-released, but I don't have a turntable, so I can't play them. I can't tell you which is better, but that's what I have, digital versus analog.